Hello and welcome to the Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena.
And this is where we talk about the good, the bad, and all the shift in between.
We'll just talk mad shift.
Let's get into it. And on this week's episode, sometimes the shift that comes out of your mouth
is not helpful.
Yeah, it's just not so helpful.
All right.
Not to everybody.
No.
Specifically people.
Yeah.
In our families. But first, let's get into these skin deep cards.
Okay.
I'll go first.
Okay, you go first.
Okay. What's a mistake you've made that affected our family for the better?
A mistake I've made that affected our family for the better. Gosh. I mean, it'd be hard to say it was a mistake, but because
at the time, if you thought it was like, oh my God, I totally fucked this up.
Well, I would say when my marriage fell apart, that I think was something that was like, oh my gosh, this is deeply painful, deeply shameful, deeply all the things. And it was something that like our families did not expect because, everyone thought we were the perfect couple.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a lot of pressure there to be that. And so when it fell apart, it felt like, oh my gosh, I've just crushed everyone and this is terrible. And, it's a huge mistake. And of course, lots of doubts and fears.
Did you think you made a mistake by leaving or by making choices or what was it?
Yeah, I think definitely I felt like there were times that I thought like I had made a mistake. Absolutely. I think anybody who's been in a relationship that fails or it looks like it's failed feels that at some point, like I've made a mistake. But I do think that in some way it helped our families for the better because it led me on a path of healing and discovery of myself. And that then led to so many other amazing things. It led to one, Armando and I getting back together years later, and starting our own healing journey, really being able to look at ourselves much more deeply, heal our relationship. And by that, creating a space to help our families heal.
Yeah.
On individual levels and as a collective whole. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. That's the best answer, I think. Because watching you guys, I did agree, like you guys were like superheroes to me. I thought like, wow, that's goal, relationship goals. And then when it was falling apart, when I had no idea, it was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But it did show me a couple of things that I had to pay attention. It made me really pay attention because I think that was a significant time in our family where I was willing to kind of just live on the surface and I really wasn't looking deeper. And when you guys said the shit hit the fan, it was like, what?
Yeah.
I had no clue.
Yeah. We couldn't live on the surface anymore.
Yeah. So really, it shifted a lot for a lot of people, I think. And as you guys were healing, it was kind of an invitation to kind of watch and see. But yeah, I would agree that was the best mistake you ever made. I thought I was mom's best mistake.
Oh, stop.
All right. What's your question?
My question is, what is something I taught you that you now know is wrong?
Oh, wow. What is something you taught me? God, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. You're right. What is something
I told you it might stump you.
You taught me? Gosh, I really can't think of something that you taught me.
Okay, I win.
Was wrong. Yeah.
If by the end of the episode you figure out something.
I'm going to think of that because there's got to be something I was like, she totally screwed me on that and lied to me. Yeah. Have I been stumped before? What? Ask the question again. Something.
What is something I taught you that you now know is wrong?
Sarcasm.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sarcasm is a form of anger. And I would like to say that siblings hold great power over their younger siblings because we look up to you. And I really did feel I had to hold my weight with you. So,
Oh, okay. That's good. That's
okay.
good. Okay.
Got it. All right. So let's get into this. Sometimes the shift that comes out of your mouth.
Out of your mouth. So this one, this isn't one that's based on a book. It's not based on this new knowledge we picked up, although it is in some ways new, knowledge that we've picked up. But there's, a situation recently that came up, and it was a big realization for me.
Mhm.
And I realized that all of us are either a parent or we're a child,
Mhm.
right? Because you couldn't get here if you weren't.
Yeah.
Right.
At one time, you're
You're either a child or you're a parent, or
one
you
side of the
have
coin.
a parent.
Mhm.
And in like doing this podcast or being on this healing journey, or being able to look at yourself and realize your mistakes and then change and do your work and be like, oh my gosh, I realize all these things that I did wrong. I realized that, I was living inauthentically, and now I have this new way of looking at life and blah, 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 blah. There's also, for me as a parent, that I was not perfect. I absolutely made a ton of mistakes. And actually, when I started on this path of self-discovery, right, of being able to work into my own shadows, and the compassionate inquiry training that I did really illuminated how much our parents affect us, which then illuminated for me how many mistakes I had made.
Yeah, because when you're looking at your parents, then you're going to look at the patterns and maybe how you repeated them.
Yes, for sure. And so for me personally, one of the things was, I was, Armando and I had kids really young. I was 17. And we kind of grew up with this complex, really, or raising our children with, you've got to be the best. You've got to do this. You've got to stand out. You've got to, all of these things, right? And a lot of that was based on my own fear of not being a good parent, of my kids not doing well. And then I look like, oh,
because you had a baby young?
You're the typical teenage mom who couldn't raise a kid, and your kids are not successful now, and you're not. And so for me, it was like, I have to outperform to prove everyone wrong, that I'm not a loser, that I didn't just completely, go off the rails and mess up my life or whatever. And so that came at the expense, one, of deep perfectionism, of trying to do everything right.
Had people been telling you that? Was that something that they had said to you? Like, if you have a kid early, you're going to throw away your life and all this?
I think everybody was, I'm sure that was like a thought in my head, that if you're, a teenage mom, you didn't go to college. I didn't even finish high school the regular way.
Yeah, you were always good at school too, from what I remember.
I was really good at school, but I didn't know the value of it. And so, later on, I really wanted my kids to have that. I wanted them to be everything I wasn't.
Living vicariously.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the books I read raising, my oldest was like All That She Can Be. And this reviving Ophelia. And it was like became this goal to be like, don't be like me. Don't get pregnant in high school. Don't ever look for your worth in another person. And still, yeah, of course, right?
Yeah.
But it was almost to the detriment of my kids that we instilled this. I mean, it's great to have work ethic. I think that's really important. I think it's really served my kids really well. But I think
they're very successful.
They're very successful. I mean, our oldest daughter has 2 master's degrees. She's working on her PhD. She works full time as a director of, marketing, and is very high achieving, extremely high achieving. And I realized even then, a lot of her beautiful drive was really self-driven, but it was I think that it was actually from, us kind of instilling this, you have to do this, you must be doing this. If you're not doing that, you're doing it wrong, and all of that, right? And it was all with good intention. I wasn't knowingly programming my kids to work themselves to death, like to outshine everyone, and all of that stuff, right? That a lot of that came from being instilled probably from fear.
Yeah, from your own subconscious, just kind of trying to do the best you could.
Right. Or be everything I couldn't be. We
try to give them everything we didn't have.
Yeah, and then actually shame them for not appreciating that. And all that. So it's just a cycle. And I had to do a lot of work on myself to really get to a place where I could forgive that part of myself, because there was times during my training I was like, man, I was not equipped to have children, and I just hurt them. And, but it is what we do as parents. You're not perfect.
Yeah.
You're going to do things wrong. You're going to do things subconsciously from patterns from your own parents, from the way you lived, everything. And so here, my kids were raised with that, with this needing to outperform and needing to just be the best, and constantly be doing, because we were always doing.
You got time to lean, you got time to clean.
Oh my gosh. I'm sure that I said that. Yeah, like you couldn't even relax. If I put the music on loud in the house and I'm cleaning, everybody better be cleaning.
Yeah.
It was just do. And that was because of my own insecurity, because of my own trying to be something and make things look perfect. And
they were trying to do that to keep you happy and keep the mood kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, so, in some ways I look at it like, well, like, great. It's awesome. You have my kids have an amazing work ethic. I'll tell you that. And they're good people. Like at their core, they are good people. And I know in many ways we did a really good job. We showed them to love people, love themselves, to try to do right by people, to have integrity, all of those things. Wonderful. But we also instilled this like, you must be doing more. You're not doing enough, And, being in the work that we're doing now, and I'm realizing when I talk to my amazing kids that I see those patterns in them. And while now, like, oh, well, here you're doing all this work. Like I literally work with people to uncover their unconscious patterns and bring them through to the other side and give this amazing advice, right? Whatever, and help people transform. And when it comes to my own kids, it's not the same. And part of me was like, why isn't that? Like, who am I? I can help other people. I can't even help my own kids. And in conversation today, what I realized is like, when you're the person that instilled the program, right? You are not the person they want to hear advice from.
No, your words can hold so much more.
Yeah.
So much more weight.
Yep. And it's not even received in the way that you intend it. And understand that that's because you're the one who in some way wounded them. And so when the person who wounded you comes and says, you should just do this. You should go into your inner child.
They shut down or they have their own.
Yeah. What they hear is another thing they're not doing right. And that hit pretty hard, because I realized like it's 100% true. If my mom or dad had instilled a program in me that said, you're not doing enough, and here I am, and I'm at work, and I'm overstressed, and I don't know what to do, and I just need to keep producing, and they say, you should just do less. All I hear from you is one more thing I'm not doing right. And, if I were not in a place to be somewhat aware, and I'm sure there's more work that I can do, I could take offense to that.
Sure.
And I could be like, listen, I do all this work. Why can't you just listen to me? I help people all the time. What's wrong with you? And it's like, oh, actually, it doesn't come the same from the person who hurt you.
What makes me think of is like teaching a teenager how to drive. A lot of people have asked me to train their kids how to drive. And I don't even want to train my own kids how to drive. I would rather have somebody else do it, because something about I think I'm a fantastic driver. Most people think they're great drivers, right? So I think that I could teach my kids. However, they wouldn't want to learn from me, I think.
Yeah.
Because it would be judgmental. There's all these things tied to it, even though I feel like I've got the greatest advice and
You're a great driver.
More so than anybody else is going to teach them. I think my interest in keeping them safe is profoundly more than anybody else because I'm their father. However, the help is not wanted sometimes.
It's not appreciated.
It's not even appreciated, yeah.
And you know what? It's like as if you're speaking in another language to them, because what they hear is not what you say. And understand that that's not personal. It's programming. Like it's just like when, for Armando and I have this thing like, I don't want to be told what to do. Right. That's just how that's one of the things that I work on, right? I don't want to be told what to do, especially not from my husband. Even if he's the expert. Like he could, he's a painting contractor. So he could be like, you should paint like this. And I'd be like, really? Because I think maybe you should do it this way. Oh, he's an expert. And I'm trying to tell,
He's been doing it for 30
Yeah. It's like,
years,
he's like, I do this for a living, But because I have a complex about, I don't want my husband to tell me what to do, because then I have a whole story about being dominated or whatever it is, that I'm not going to hear his advice the way I would hear a stranger come up to me and say, Lena, if you just use the paintbrush this way, I'd be like, oh my gosh, thank you. That's amazing. Because I have no entanglement with this person telling me something as opposed to somebody that I don't want telling me what to do. Because at one point in our relationship, he told me what to do all the time and I hated it.
Yeah.
And it was a source of contention. So even to this day, even with the work I've done, if Armando tries to lead me through a meditation, I'm like, oh, that's probably not right. Oh my God, I don't want to breathe that way. But
let that shift go.
Stranger Joe comes over and be like, oh, you just breathe this way. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. So just realizing like, one, I think I want to do this podcast with you because it was like, wow, this is really important for people at any, phase in their healing journey of like, if you're the kid, if you're the parent. But for me, especially speaking to parents, if you've done your work, quote unquote, you've come to some realizations, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm healed now.
Yeah, I'm doing my work.
I'm doing my work and I'm healed and I have all this great advice. But the person you were raising when you were in the worst part of your development, and now you want to tell them what to do and how to do it, it's not personal, but they probably don't want to hear it from you.
Yeah, I have that same issue with my kids.
Yeah, it's not going to be received the same.
Yeah, and I think some of it is, I wonder if it is almost an anger that now we see things differently.
Yeah,
and we're
you
trying,
didn't then.
and we didn't then.
Yep.
And now we're kind of getting a pass for it.
Yeah. You're just getting a pass for everything that you did. Now
you treated me like shit for many years, and now you're telling me all of a sudden that you know how to fix it, but you were an asshole.
You're the one. You're the reason I have this problem.
Yeah.
And there's like a certain amount of like humility you need to access to be able to step back and say, man, you're absolutely right, and I can imagine what it would be like to receive advice from the person who hurt me, or not even knowingly, right?
No, but I like that because it is a hurt.
It is a hurt.
Yeah.
It is
It may
whether
not be
it
a
was
big
an
T
intentional,
trauma.
no,
Yeah.
whether it's intentional or not. You definitely, if you're a parent, you help form the patterns that your kids now live by, subconsciously for you and now subconsciously for them. And so, just because I've done this work and I can help somebody work through it, it's not translated the same way to the person that you've hurt in the past in your former self.
Yeah.
So in that space, like, well, then what do you do then? If you're watching somebody hurt and you think, oh, I know what could help them. There's this practice I learned or whatever. It's just knowing like maybe the best thing you can do is just be available
and let them
know like, I love you and, I'm here for you. And I can imagine that this is hard. But whatever you're doing is absolutely enough. And it's okay. Like there's a space that maybe there could be healing there, but there will take a certain amount of humility and really being able to look at yourself in that situation. And even like doing this podcast, I don't want my kids to listen to, oh, now you're talking about me on the, one, I don't think they listen to it because they don't want to hear my advice.
Yeah, that's what this is about.
They probably won't, and that's okay. But is just to be able to step back and go, listen, it just because you have the best advice doesn't mean it's going to be received by everyone in the same way. Just consider the history that you've had and whether or not you are the person to give that advice.
Yeah, some of it is like if I have to flip it around, and we've had this conversation before where I looked at having a conversation with Dad. And it was like, I have to imagine my 48-year-old son having a conversation with me at 79. And then how would I want that to go?
Yeah.
And when I'm looking at that, sometimes when Dad tries to, talk to me even now, I could see like he tries to give me advice today. And I see it. But what I recognize in myself, even as we're having this conversation, is that I've lost some respect there.
Yeah.
Because of how I was hurt.
Yep.
So I don't really believe that he knows what he's talking about because he hurt me in the exact way he's telling me how to fix it, kind of a thing.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So his advice is not well received, I think.
Yeah. It's like, who are you to tell me? Do you know that you're the one who pushed me to do A, B, and C?
Yeah.
You're the one who made me feel like I was never doing enough.
Yeah.
And then now to say, just slow down. You're doing enough. It's like, you're the reason why I don't believe that.
Mm.
And it doesn't matter what stage of healing you're in now.
Mm.
I am carrying this hurt and I'm trying to work through it. And while I could probably hear that same exact sentence from someone else, we see everything through the past.
Yeah.
We see everything through the past. Just think about how you see a cup of water. Like, you only know it's a cup because you've put something in it before and you drank it. Like, you see it through the past, everything. If this was the first time you're ever seeing this thing, okay, well then you have no reference for it. But if you're, now when I'm saying something to you, you're viewing me through the past. My history with you is still filtered through your past.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter so much what you're saying now. It matters who you are to me and what that means. And, it's beautiful when your children or you as a child or of a parent can recognize that that's a thing and be able to say, listen, I love your wisdom or your advice. But when I hear it, what I hear is I'm not doing enough. Right? When you say you should do this.
Well, but I recently read something that said that when you try to solve your kids' problems, you rob them of their ability to create agency within themselves, to solve their own problems. And so the advice that I heard was you shouldn't really be giving them advice.
Or you shouldn't be shitting on them.
No, you should be active listening. Kind of like what you said earlier about somebody with a thorn in their arm. Rather than pulling it out for them, say, hey, did you notice you have a thorn in your arm? What do you think you should do about that?
Yeah.
What do you think the options are? Like letting them do the thing. And that is what I read, that it made sense to me because some of the things that we do as parents who grew up without is we try to give our kids everything that we didn't have, which robs them of some of the grit that we gained by, grinding for that stuff or trying to figure out. Like we were on our own and trying to figure things out as kids, but making adult decisions.
Yeah.
Which is why we have agency earlier than other kids.
Yeah. 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 There's like, you're not going to get away from making mistakes. That's the thing. You're not going to get away from making mistakes. As a parent, you're going to make mistakes. It's like a given. Even when you're trying to create the perfect life, it's wrought with pitfalls.
Well, I have this thought because you had a conversation with your daughter today, and I am on the verge of having a conversation with my oldest son. And rather than having a conversation where I'm going to give him advice, which is what I want to do deeply, because here I am in the health and wellness, realm. But what I've been invited to do by somebody who mentored me was just explain to him that I have a deep respect for his thoughts and his emotions and how he's feeling. And I'm ready to listen and I'm ready to learn from him. Yeah. Because your daughter taught you something today.
Oh, she teaches, she's taught me so many things.
I mean, the conversation brought up this podcast.
Yes. Yeah.
And so while we were initially thinking about how to give better advice or why the advice that we try to give the ones that we love is not well accepted, it may be that we shouldn't be giving them advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because what do we do in this field? It's not so much about coaching. It's about teaching people they have their own innate ability within themselves to heal. Not that they need us. Yeah. We're just waking up and reminding them of who they are. Yeah. And that they have all the gifts within them to be their best selves.
Yeah. Yeah. And that deep belief in them. That's one of the things too, is had I been able to go back in time and reparent, I would have hoped that I would have been more, that you're doing enough. Like whatever you're doing, it's
what
enough.
Would you have done different? Is there a moment where you would, like we talked about earlier with a mistake, in the family that was better? Is there something that you could look back on your kids? I think I would have encouraged them to trust themselves more instead of you should or why you should know. Yeah, that's building the intuition.
Yeah. And
Mind, body
really just
connection.
really being able to trust yourself because, as you become adults and you start to, go into the job or go into the world is to really be like, well, what do you think? And yeah, that's whatever that is, it's enough. And if you would like advice, like I can give it to you, but I trust that and that you can believe in yourself, and that you don't have to push yourself to exhaustion in order to feel worthy, that your productivity is not where your value is.
You say like listening to yourself, and I mean, we've been talking about the word knowing, and it's just knowing that you're doing the right thing, trusting your knowing.
Yeah.
You're trusting your intuition.
Yeah.
And I wish that's something that I would have done different with my kids, is just to teach them to trust themselves, their gut feeling.
Yeah, how to be connected with their body, with their own knowing, and trust their judgment. Because, when they become adults, they need that instead of looking for some outside source, or just relying on this old pattern and really recognizing what the patterns are. I mean, I think that would have been a
parts of me feels like I protected them so much from all the hurts that were going to come up in life, that now that they're into their early adult lives, that things are hitting them hard and fast, and they don't have the coping mechanisms.
Yeah, the world
I wish
is
that they had.
moving much faster too.
Yeah, and it's moving way faster than even when you and I were growing up.
Yeah.
So, in some ways, I do believe what I said earlier about robbing your children by solving everything for them, because they don't develop the skills.
Yeah, or the ability to trust their own judgment.
Yeah, to trust their own judgment.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. That felt like something really important to bring up, just because I think back. Okay, like even like 2 years ago, if I had heard this and someone said, when you are on your own journey of healing and discovery, and really looking into your own patterns and working through your triggers, all the things we talk about, right? Is that when you are now dealing with your own kids or your own family or people that you've hurt, and you want to come in like, I got all the answers now, and look, I'm healed. It's like, it's bypassing what may have been, how they may have been affected by you in the past. And just because you have great advice now doesn't mean that it needs to come from you. And there is this ability to just find humility and to sit back and just be there. Just be a space for them to find their way and let them know that they can trust themselves, And if there is something that that you instilled, like this, you should do this, you're not doing enough, you should do more, is to recognize that and to acknowledge it as a possibility that may have been something they experienced, and that you're open to hearing about it. But to also recognize, like, that your newfound help, how-to advice, that needs to come after you've recognized the role that you may have played in their own pain and the thing that you're trying to advise them on now.
Yeah.
It's just leave space for that, and leave space for forgiveness for yourself, because forgiving ourselves is one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah. And I think that's, forgiving myself. I talk a lot about wanting to have conversations with the people that hurt me. My dad, our dad, or my stepdad. But I haven't really even had the conversation with my son. The same kind of conversation that I know that he wants to have with me. Or maybe he doesn't yet, or isn't ready.
Yeah.
But I think I'm thinking about what I wish my dad would have done for me. And I think that's just to listen.
Just listen. Like, check your ego.
Don't say a damn thing.
Check your ego at the door.
Yeah.
Sit down and just listen.
It's not the time to come up with excuses.
No.
It's not the time to tell them why you were an asshole, why you failed, why make excuses. This is what happened to me. This is why this is all the things that I want to say to defend myself, because that's my ego. I was a bad dad because of this.
It wasn't my fault. Yeah, but it doesn't do anything for them.
But if I say it wasn't my fault, I'm not taking responsibility and accountability for my actions. And maybe it wasn't necessarily my fault, but it is absolutely my responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This for me was a powerful moment of like realization. And I thought it would be important to share it, because you think, oh, well, here we are, we're doing this podcast. We've learned all these things. It's amazing. It's amazing. Sometimes the hardest people to help are the people closest to you. And this is one of the reasons.
Yeah.
So I hope it helps. I hope it helps someone just to stop and think. And if you're on your healing journey, you're doing all your self-discovery and you're doing all the breath work and realizing all your wounds, cool. But also take into account that, you may have left a trail behind you that needs to be addressed, not for you to go back and I got to fix all that, is just to realize, stay in humility that may have happened and kind of know your place.
Kind of an atonement, you think? Like the 12-step program will make you, they have something in there where you have to, apologize to the people that you've hurt, kind of a thing.
I think that is absolutely important, and because it gives those people like an opportunity to move through that hurt if they choose to, but it's not something you demand because you want it. Like I'm in my step, so I this is one of the things, and I'm doing this for me. If you're doing it for you, like really kind of check yourself, and just have some humility to understand how that may have affected the other person, and if they're in a space to want to hear it at all. But I would say just don't go about spewing all of your advice of how they should do it now. Yeah, how they should do things.
Advice,
yeah, exactly. Because all they're going to hear is another way they're not doing it right. Or you, this person who you messed me up in the first place, now you want to tell me what I should be doing with my life. And it's like, no.
I don't know that my kids have ever said, Dad, I need some advice. I don't think they've ever said that to me. Ever. Yeah. It's always me, sit down. We're going to have a conversation.
Oh, here we go. You're going to talk
Jesus.
at me.
I'm going to talk. Yeah, exactly.
You're going to talk at me. Yeah.
So here's an invitation to try something different, to be curious. Humility, active listening.
Love. Recognize when someone is fighting with you or they're lashing out at you or they're angry and upset, is just like to see this other person in their anger, and that must be painful.
They've been telling you all along. You just haven't been listening, because even as I'm having this conversation with you, I'm rehearing texts and messages and things that were just like, oh, they're so obvious.
Yeah, it really is. Just zoom out, see it from a higher perspective. But yeah.
Get curious.
I hope this helps.
All right, that's been another episode of Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena. Let us know what your questions are, and we'd love to use them on a future episode. Or check us out on Insta at Let That Shift Go, or visit our website, serenitycovetemecula.com.